Sitting courtside, Knicks and Nets give me high five. Nigga, I be spiked out. I could trip a referee. Tell by my attitude that I most definitely from.
And we're live.
Hello and welcome back to a maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh. Maniacal laugh of the First Time Watchers podcast.
Bang, bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. Because we like to watch.
My name is Tiff Costa.
I'm Ramon.
Bang! And this is Walter Vinci.
What we like to do on the FTW podcast is find a movie that none of us have seen and watch together and then discuss. These movies could be new, they could be old, or something that's on all of a list of shame. If you'd like to send feedback, remember to email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com. Don't know why I say that, because we have no feedback.
Oh, come on, people. Get on it.
This means we're doing a good job. There's nothing to report.
Yeah, that's logical reasoning right there, Hermano. Sure.
I try to look on the bright side.
In this episode, we'll be discussing the 1990 Abel Ferrara film, King of New York. But before we get into that, it is time for Yay or Nay. This is the part of the show where we discuss what we've seen recently on our own. I'll go first. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll try to be really, really quick. So, I haven't been going out of my way to watch a lot of the bad or poor movies out of the year, but there have been some that I've been curious about. And it just so happens that I still subscribe to Netflix DVD, and the one that was in the queue, Dark Phoenix, earlier this year. Is it technically the worst film of the year that I've seen so far? Yes. The worst thing about this, the worst offense, is that I wasn't bored, because I wasn't. It's that it's all very, very lazy. The writing, direction, acting, very, very uninspired. Like, I don't know who the bad guys are. I don't know. There's no explanation for it. Or if it is, it's very glossed over. The directions and action scenes are very lackadaisical. Some of the action scenes reminded me of the very first X-Men, where obvious wire work, and while it worked, it was fine for back in 2000. It doesn't work nowadays. No good. There really isn't any meaningful action scene until the end. Most of them are just like set pieces for people putting their hands in the air, controlling whatever CGI is around them. Even the actors seem like they're going through the motions, like obligating a contract. Michael Fassbender doesn't even show up until halfway through the movie. I have no knowledge of the comic book series. Of course, I don't have any background on what this Phoenix storyline is, but just based on this movie, I can see like the seeds of a great story and a character arc for Jean Grey and her connection to the group and her struggle with her powers and dealing with her past. I think the worst thing that these new X-Men films did was not develop like a cohesive timeline to focus on character arcs. They seemed more interested in being period pieces with some memorable action scenes. That's the biggest complaint about this whole thing. It's so uninspired. It's so lackadaisical. Like, do you remember where this started off at First Class? How exciting that was?
Yes, I loved First Class.
Even you, Hermano, liked that movie, right?
Yeah, I was kind of on board with First Class. I think I even liked Days of Future Past better, to be honest. And
yeah.
I don't know. I heard nothing but bad about Dark Phoenix, and I've always heard it's one of the better stories, but they keep fucking it up somehow. Well,
it's really interesting. It really says something when it makes me appreciate The Last Stand more than I already do, because it's not a movie that I hate. I actually like that movie. Obviously, it's not as good as the first two X-Men movie, but if this movie makes me appreciate The Last Stand more, that's saying how bad this movie is. It's bad.
Ouch.
Yeah, bad. Speaking of bad, I went to go see Rambo: Last Blood. I'll say that this is a tick above Dark Phoenix only because it doesn't feel lazy.
There was a time when I wouldn't have missed this movie for the world, and I don't know. It looked bad from the get-go for me.
And you saw the other most recent Rambo movie that came out like 10 years ago?
I did. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. It's solid. It's solid, yeah. But and it seems like a good, that movie seemed like a good finish to the Rambo series, right?
Yeah, the way it ended off, it was perfect.
Yeah. So, walking toward the house,
right? Exactly. Well, this movie takes place at his house in Mexico.
Well, we know he made it. We know he made it home safely.
Yeah,
he didn't die in the driveway.
No, he didn't die in the driveway. Look, the reason I don't say it's I'll put it below Dark Phoenix is because it doesn't feel lazy. It feels like there's some effort put into it, even if the final product isn't great. Like, the cruelty to some characters seems a bit much, especially in terms of Rambo's motivation. I'm not sure it needed to go fully there. But then again, if you're depicting awful drug cartels do awful things. So I don't know. It seems like there is a commitment by Stallone to pay homage to the character and the ideas of those demons that someone can't ever escape. It's just not written well. Honestly, this movie actually reminded me of You Were Never Really Here. And there isn't even a scene where he uses a hammer against people. So I don't know. It's just under 90 minutes, and there is a lot of carnage at the end. I guess you could do worse. I don't know, but it's not great. You guys seen Snake Eyes? Brian De Palma, Nicolas Cage?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, not in a long time.
Not a long time. I hadn't seen it since its release in 1998. This movie's 21 years old, guys. This movie can drink and go to Vegas and enjoy itself.
We're ancient.
And it certainly will.
Yeah. What? Do you guys remember the opening to this movie?
It's a boxing match, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a 13-minute long take. It's awesome.
Yes.
It's awesome. And overall, another entertaining riff on Hitchcock, but it really loses steam in its last act and the finale. It seems like they wrote themselves into a corner and couldn't really figure out how to properly close it. And there's even an epilogue that kind of feels tacked on to add some sort of like weight to it or whatever. And Nick Cage starts off with going full Cage and is entertaining, but he seems to like rein it in a little bit. And also, this is the time period after Forrest Gump when Hollywood thought Gary Sinise was going to be the next big thing. And that's fine, because he's perfectly serviceable. I've always liked Gary Sinise, wherever he is.
He was solid in Ransom.
Oh, he was very solid in Ransom. Yeah, he was the bad guy in Ransom, right? Yeah, oh yeah, that's a great movie.
Spoiler.
Yeah, it's also weird that Gary Sinise's character in this movie, his name is Kevin Dunn, and the actor, Kevin Dunn, has a pretty big role in this. How weird is that? I don't know. I'll say mild gay for Snake Eyes because it's middle of the road De Palma. I'm once again continuing my De Palma watch or rewatches because I really want to catch up on everything that he's done. I like him so much. A rewatch of a movie that we talked about on this podcast a long time ago because I'm doing my best of the decade contenders list and a rewatch of Kill List from 2011.
I'm going. Bye. I leave now.
Wally, you really hate this movie, don't you?
Oh, where is something I can stab myself in the dick with? Where is it? There's got to be something around here.
Was it just because of the batshit ending to it?
This movie's terrible. the ending of this movie really kills all the momentum that it has. It made me hate Ben Wheatley.
Well, you say momentum because I don't know if there was much momentum in this movie because it's a rather slow-paced movie throughout, even though it's short. And you know what it is? It's a mumblecore movie. It's a mumblecore thriller. I don't know how many mumblecore movies you've seen, Wally. So if I don't know, the tone and pace and structure of it reminded me of that kind of genre. So
and then such a twist.
See, that's the thing. I knew. See, I didn't remember exactly what the ending was. I just remember it was batshit crazy. I didn't remember the details of it. So the very last part of the movie, I was like, oh, okay. But it really didn't shock me or surprise me in terms of it being big, bold, and cruel or whatever. I saw it and I was like, I probably wasn't surprised because all the pieces were there throughout the movie. It seems like it warranted kind of a shocking conclusion. Like, Hermano, what do you remember this movie?
Actually, I obviously remember the ending. That's probably the most memorable aspect of the film because it seemed like something out of like a Serbian film as far as like shock. But I kind of agree with Wally in the beginning. I felt like with both of you guys, actually, like the beginning felt very slow paced. I remember not really being into it. But then about the halfway point, once I felt like characters had like forward momentum and they were actually doing things, I became more invested in like all the kind of strange happenings that were surrounding them and they were investigating. And yeah, kind of where it went. I don't know if it's a twist. I think the film all of a sudden just kind of became something else that it didn't initially seem like it was, setting up to that.
Well, I think the setup starts in the middle when they start doing the hits. They have that kill list, and they are coming across people that they've been ordered to kill, and then there's a lot of kind of strange happenings or sentences or words or stuff, slightly odd stuff that they start encountering on their mission. So I like I said, I think all those pieces are there, but it's the first half where there's like this uber realistic dialogue with some harsh edits regarding familial drama and marital strife and all that kind of stuff, which all makes sense, I guess, based on this guy and his PTSD from the war and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, all of that, the way it was structured, kind of kept me at a distance. So this won't be making my best of the decade, but I did appreciate the rewatch. So hit and miss, I guess, for some people, obviously. Mild A for me. And I did get to go out and see Ad Astra this past weekend. This is the Brad Pitt in space movie, going to find his father. My biggest complaint about this movie is the voiceover. And I'm just stunned that this movie had such a wide release, well over 3,000 theaters, because it's an art house film. It's slowly paced. It's introspective. It's a movie that you would expect to be in a small art house independent theater, never in a Cineplex. Like, if you've seen any trailers to this, they've outright lied to people as it being an action space epic, because it is not. It's like Terrence Malick-esque. It kind of reminded me of High Life from earlier this year by Claire Denis. It's extremely deliberate for most of its runtime. There's this voiceover by Brad Pitt, which I have a feeling it was dictated by the studio as something to assist the audience, because this movie does not need a voiceover to show me or to tell me Pitt's feelings to me, when I could have easily just understood them through all the visual cues. The themes are clear and present throughout, but it's this voiceover that really puts this movie down for me. On a technical level, it's one of the best looking films of the year, and a great score. The camera work, transitions, they're all top notch. And it seems like some relatively realistic depictions of what the near future would be like on the moon. Brad Pitt is great in this. He shows his ability to work with directors and the types of films that he's in. The difference between his performance in this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is quite something. They're quite different. I'm not sure how either of you would react to this movie, considering how it's structured and its pace and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think a lot of people a lot of critics have really placed this pretty highly. I don't understand how anyone can overlook the voiceover and its reliance, the film's reliance on it to tell me how Brad Pitt's character is acting the whole time. So it's a mild A for me, though, for Ad Astra. Wally.
All right, I got one thing that I started watching, and that is The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. Returns to the world of Thra, where three Gelfling discover the horrifying secret behind the Skeksis' power and set out to ignite the fires of rebellion to save the world. Okay, so The Dark Crystal is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I have multiple copies of it. I got the super duper Blu-ray that came out when it had its anniversary release not too long ago, and I don't know how I feel about this series at the moment, because it takes stuff that that is clearly explained at the beginning, or that you should be getting throughout the movie, and changes the canon drastically. Like, one of the things that they say at the very beginning in the first episode is the Skeksis came from another planet, and that's not the case in the movie. And I'm waiting to see how they tie it all in. I could be maybe just haven't given enough episodes in. But let me tell you, this movie, this series is not for children. There's some seriously terrifying imagery that I think little kids would not appreciate. Like when they first discover that the crystal can suck the life force out of a Gelfling, and like the Gelfling's being like having her life force sucked out, they literally stab her in the back with two large prongs out of nowhere. Later on, another character is tied to a chair and beetles are crawling into his eyes, and I'm like, a kid watching this would probably like have nightmares. So I'm not done with it yet. I'm holding off on a final yay or nay on it, just because it really does affect the canon of the actual movie.
Hermano, you've seen the original movie, right?
Yeah, not a long time. I could barely even comment on it. I remember it being one of those films though. Like I think Labyrinth in that one kind of scarred me a bit. I think I watched it when I was a bit too young, and I just had like one of those like irrational like I'll never watch those films again because they scarred me, and like I don't know. I just been holding off on it, rewatching it.
Oh, so does this series interest you at all?
I don't know. I've heard a lot of people like telling me like that they really like the visuals and stuff like that, but I remember seeing a trailer on Netflix, and I don't know, it kind of turned me off for some reason. It looked like some weird mesh of puppetry and CGI that it was like off-putting for some weird reason. I can't even fully elaborate on why, but it just kind of turned me off.
Wally, what do you say about the imagery and everything like that?
Oh, all the imagery is just like the movie. Like all of the character designs, the way the puppets move, some of the stuff that they're doing with this is just like the original, the original movie. Everything looks great, but it's the story that really is irking me at the moment.
Through the crystal like a clear water fountain, it drove me like a magnet to the sea, to the sea, to the sea.
I thought we were done with the robots.
So did I.
Guys, it's just one hopper bot. I'm sure it's nothing.
You were supposed to get rid of them after all the audience virus showdown.
Which is why we had to rebuild the studio again, if you recall.
It's just one hopper bot.
What is it?
Oh, nothing.
Doesn't sound like nothing.
Hey, you know what shows has something going on?
The In Session Film Podcast. Way to pivot, Wally.
That's right, Tim. The In Session Film Podcast is JD and Brendan.
Wouldn't mind getting something going on with Brendan, if you know what I mean.
What was that, Tim?
What? No, nothing.
Each week, the In Session Film Podcast chooses a movie to review.
Then creates a top 3 list based on what they just saw.
This week, the In Session Film Podcast is reviewing Brad Pitt's latest Ad Astra.
And a top 3 list of Brad Pitt scenes.
Ladies and gents, please make sure to have plenty of towels handy.
Indeed. You can find their show on Apple Podcasts by searching for, you guessed it, the In Session Film Podcast.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So if you're looking for more great movie reviews and discussion,
then check out the In Session Film Podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So, what's going on?
Oh, nothing. Anyway, you guys start the show, and I'll be right back.
Where are you going?
I just gotta take care of something quick.
I don't like the sound of this.
Me neither.
How the faces of love change, turning the pages, and I have changed all but you remain ageless. I turn
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk.
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
I turned around and the water was close.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Like the love that had found.
Okay, let's talk about King of New York.
From here on, nothing goes down unless I'm involved. No blackjack, no dope deals, no nothing. A nickel bag gets sold in the park. I want in. You guys got fat while everybody starved on the street. It's my turn.
You think you're gonna live long enough to spend that money, you fucking hump?
If any of you are tired of getting ripped off by guys like that, you come with me. I'm at the Plaza Hotel. You're welcome. You're all welcome to join.
The plot: a drug kingpin is released from prison and seeks to take total control of the criminal underworld in order to give back to the community. Really? IMDb? The director, Abel Ferrara. The actors, Christopher Walken, David Caruso, Lawrence Fishburne, Larry Fishburne, Roy Bishop, and Wesley Snipes. Hermano.
Hi.
I think you stated you had seen this movie a long time ago, but you remembered nothing from it.
Exactamundo. I remembered absolutely nothing. I think my recollection was that I went through a phase when I was younger that, I was really into like gangster/crime films. And, I'd seen a lot of the must-sees, Goodfellas, Scarface, the Godfather films. And then I think it was at one of the video rental chains that they would sometimes put like, before IMDb's like recommendations, like, hey, if you like this, you might also like this. They used to do it at video stores, and they would like put like films together and be like, hey, if you like the Goodfellas, you might like King of New York. And I think that's what attracted me to it. And I remember watching it, and again, my recollection was kind of foggy, but I remember only seeing it once, so it wasn't the gift that keeps on giving like Goodfellas or the Godfather films. It definitely didn't seem like it had rewatchability since I'd only seen it the one time, and I watched it last night, and I can kind of see why. It's unlike any of those other films I mentioned. I mean, it's obviously dealing with the crime element and like a big figure at the head of it in Christopher Walken, but it's insane that this film came out the same year as Goodfellas. Like, those two films are like light years apart. I gotta admit though, like as I was watching it in the beginning, I was like, wow, is this gonna be way better than I remembered? Because like Christopher Walken was sort of doing a Nick Cage thing where he was like really, his performance was really out there to start, and then he kind of mellows out, and he's easily overtaken by Larry Fishburne, going by Larry Fishburne in this film, which is funny.
Isn't it fascinating to look at this and just 9 years later, Fishburne would be in one of the biggest science fiction movies of all time?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've known that earlier in his career he was going by Larry Fishburne. I think he did it in was it Platoon was the one he was in?
I think so, but also was he in Boys in the Hood?
Yeah, but I think he might have gone as Lawrence Fishburne in that, because that came out like a couple years later.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was already starting. He was like, you know what? I want to be taken seriously as an actor. Larry's not a serious name. Sorry to all the Larrys out there. Hope I didn't offend you. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like the film, it's kind of, I mean, if you're familiar with Abel Ferrara, like this is sort of par for the course. I mean, the guy who directed Bad Lieutenant, Ms. 45, he's obviously a New York guy who wanted to capture that kind of seedier side of New York, which wouldn't have been too hard in the 80s, especially.
Oh, by the way, he was Larry Fishburne in Boys in the Hood. I think he dropped the Larry when he was as Ike Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It?
Wow,
93.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe after he got like a lot of buzz for Boys in the Hood, he's like, whoa. Some agent was like, yo, you got to change that Larry, dude. But he was great in this film. Can we all agree on that?
Absolutely. Lawrence
Fishburne is the MVP, much like Dean Stockwell was the MVP in Blue Velvet. Like Lawrence Fishburne is doing the Lord's work in this film.
I'll agree.
Because what he's doing is, I would have loved in his heyday, in his prime, which I'm guessing like this and Boys in the Hood is his prime. Like, I would have loved to see him play someone like the Joker after seeing this performance,
Oh.
because he was like, his laugh, his like bravado, like everything, like just something about him, just it reminded me of like Joker-esque. But I think I guess I'll start with most of the negative now. Is I think that story on IMDb, while technically true, or I should say not false, I just feel like I never got a grasp of character motivations, and I feel like this film's just its exploration of the characters is really lacking. Like, I just had no idea why Walken was doing anything. Like, I know he's doing it, I see him doing it, but I don't know what's motivating him. Like, what's his character motivated by? And same thing with like Lawrence Fishburne has a kind of a moment like that too. And I don't know if the point is to show that, yes, we're seeing these guys do horrific things, but they also have a soft side and care about their community on some level. I thought, as the kids would say, is kind of a strange flex. I was like, this is kind of a weird exploration that the film is, a weird journey the film is taking us on. And I guess I never got on board really. And again, I just couldn't help but like compare it to other films at the time. Like, Goodfellas came out the same year, and Goodfellas is like a masterpiece.
It's so unfair to do that, though.
It is unfair, but again, I'm saying I can't help but think about it because it's in the back of my mind. I'm like, wow. And I think, I guess to get back on the plus side, I did like the cinematography at times. I thought the film was pretty good looking
And the lighting.
for the most part. Huh?
The lighting as well.
Yeah, it was solid. It looked pretty solid for a 90s film. I'd say it looked at least as good as Goodfellas. Like, it didn't look like a film that was shot on like subpar equipment or anything, or it was like a low budget film and you could just kind of tell and it suffered visually. But yeah, I don't know. I just, I guess, and ultimately where the film goes, I feel like I just never understood what was going on and why characters were doing things.
Wally.
All right, well, I'm the exact opposite of Hermano. This movie is dark. And when I say dark, I mean I can't see shit. And the cinematographer, whoever lit these things, you guys are talking about the lighting. The lighting of this movie is absolute garbage. Unless it's outside during the day where this actual sun shows up, I can't see what the hell is going on at all in any of the nighttime scenes. It's so poorly lit.
What service did you watch this on?
I watched it on Amazon.
Oh, see, so did I, and I didn't find anything wrong, even in the darker scenes.
Indoor scenes in the club, under the bridge, couldn't tell what the hell was going on, who was who, where anything was. Nope. The characters in this are all just all over the place, like Hermano said. Like, even the cops, like watching it with Kate, and Kate's like, "These are the cops, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I have no idea why there's a dead body in the cop's car trunk. Like, not in a bag, not, it's not the coroner wagon. It's their squad car. They have a dead body in the back of a squad car.
Yeah.
Just so they can show Christopher Walken a dead body.
Yeah, intimidation.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, it's intimidation.
No sense.
Well, you know what it is? It's because everybody, even the cops, are sleazy, dirty, cruel. That's what they all are.
But not all of them. There is the one like shining beacon, older guy who's trying to keep his younger guys in line. And I just, again, like his motivation, other than being right on the page as like, oh, he's the older statesman guy who's telling these guys like, stay on the straight path. We're just going to do it by the book. But what's his motivation? Like, why? I mean, other than like he's got like a conscience, like, it just seems like the film's not exploring it on any deep level. It's just right there. And it's not like this, it's never uttered verbally. Like, it's just, what are we supposed to think? Like, we get like, hey, any sound individual should be like, yeah, like we're cops, we're supposed to be the good guys. But
I think it's just that everybody is corrupt. There's corruption rampant throughout this city, and that's what this movie is about. It's a completely unforgiving tale of what it takes to make it in New York City, and that nobody is going to be left untouched. Even the quote unquote moral compass of that older cop, he obviously by the end loses his way. I mean, I think that's what it's all about. I mean, honestly, I think there's a bit of subtext that could be extrapolated to like today's political climate, because if you look at who Walken could represent and how he got there and what he has to do to get there, I don't know. I think it's pretty easy to make some parallels, and I don't know. I still found this. The more I think about it, the more I like it. Even though I liked it when I first watched it, I still found it pretty engrossing. As far as the filmmaking, there's nothing really flashy about it, except, like I said, there's some fantastic lighting, and also the use of colors within that lighting. The blues and the reds and the oranges, I really thought was great. I think the story, it just kind of unfolds around you. Like it doesn't really offer much other than you seeing him walk out of prison and then driving in this limo, and then you just see all these people start to come together, and you start to understand who they are, and how scummy they all are. Even the cops, like I said. But you're right. I think Lawrence Fishburne is the best part of this movie. He does steal it from Christopher Walken. It's really funny because it opens with Christopher Walken doing this weird, as you say, Nick Cage thing. He starts dancing and he starts making this weird sound effects, and you start wondering, is he going to be doing this throughout the whole movie? Well, no, but I think maybe it's to show that he's getting more withdrawn into himself as the movie goes along, because he has less and less people to trust. If anything, this movie made me want to watch more Abel Ferrara films, because I've only seen one other, and that's Miss 45, which is one of the best revenge films I've ever seen. I've heard a lot about
Bad Lieutenant,
and Harvey Keitel's performance in it, but it makes me want to watch that movie even more now.
I'd recommend it if you like this. I think it's better than this overall, even though that one's also not one that's like highly rewatchable for me, because it is dealing with a lot of the same things. You're following someone terrible and watching him do terrible things, pretty much unhindered. And I get that on some level. Like, you're just watching Christopher Walken just kind of do basically whatever he wants. But again, his motivation, like, don't you feel like it's just missing something? Like,
well, I kind of got it. I kind of got it with him coming out of jail and realizing who he was, and I'm like, oh, okay, he wants to be, and it's the title itself. He wants to be the king. He wants to be the most powerful mob boss in the city. So I get it. I understood that he just wants power.
Yeah, and in some way, I thought this was maybe like a modern retelling of like a king in the Middle Ages or something like that. Like, they obviously had to do things when they would take out their rivals. They'd set them up, behead them, whatever. Like, anyone that was, going against the king or whatever, like he would dispatch his enemies essentially. And it feels like that's what Christopher Walken is doing in this. It's just strange because I've never seen a film like this where a guy is basically just going around killing his rivals, but still he's not like trying to better himself necessarily. He's just trying to consolidate power. Like, he wants to be the only criminal essentially, and killing all his rivals, but still doing terrible things. But then kind of like the hooker with a heart of gold story, where he's like, I want to save this hospital that's fallen on hard times. It's like a children's hospital. You know what I mean? But then it's paralleled by him like going in and just murdering like an entire gang, and I don't know. It's just
I never saw that the hospital ruse as anything other than that, a ruse. I found it as obviously he was going to use it as a way to funnel money, and they even showed that with his discussion of the other crook there.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly thought that even him talking to like the congressman and stuff, like, he was pushing for it. Like, why would he have to go to a congressman to push for funds for a hospital if, the funds wouldn't have been coming from him. They'd be coming from the state. So
yeah, but would he be involved? It would be a cover. It's a cover, essentially. That's why.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know how that would all work, but why a hospital would be like top choice for him.
I don't know. I like I said, it didn't matter
Again,
to
it's
me.
the film it made me ask a lot of questions that I felt like it never even attempted to answer, and I was just kind of left with a lot of questions.
Wally, like, did you like anything else? Like Lawrence Fishburne, any other performances?
Lawrence Fishburne struck me as a guy who is doing some sort of caricature b-boy thing. I was like, what is he doing? Like, maybe it's because I'm just used to seeing Lawrence Fishburne now as opposed to then. Maybe, but I mean, he was the king. He was Cowboy Curtis, but like seeing him in like the Run DMC getup with like the hunch and like the swinging hands, it just seemed so strange to see him doing that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And then you've got this other scene where he's involved in, where he's doing that whole. Well, I mean, that's one thing that his character does get shown a bit in the movie, is that he's a killer, he's a dealer, but he's also there's also got these other sides to him when he's in the restaurant ordering chicken, and he sees the kids get yelled at by the clerk for to get away from the video games, and then he goes over and he hands out some money to I think the grandmother's taking care of the kids so they can play some games. But then you have that scene playing up behind him, which I'm like, are we playing this for tension or are we playing this for laughs? Where his buddy's getting arrested outside and he's like completely oblivious to what's going on while he's waiting for his food to come up.
See, I never really saw it much in the terms of levity in this movie. There's not much moments of levity. And
I agree with Wally on one hand. I do think the reason I do like Lawrence Fishburne's performance is not that I thought it was actually really good. I think that yes, it's very character. He's doing like a character b-boy, like Wally said, like a very heightened version of like a member of Run DMC or whatever, like the thick rope, gold chains. He's got like the gold teeth, I believe.
Yep.
And his mannerisms are like all over the place, like just very.
It's because he's an agent of chaos, and so anything to make him unpredictable, even in terms of his random movements, I think was a really nice touch.
Yeah, no, I'm on board, man. I say it, I liked it. I just think I'm saying that's why I liked it, is because he was out there. Like he added a lot of energy to every scene he was in, and I wished he was in it more. Like, Tim, do you want to talk about Giancarlo Esposito?
Yeah, I didn't even recognize him in this movie.
So young in this,
right?
Still cool though. He's cool even back then.
Of course.
All I kept thinking was like, man, this is Gus Fring's origin story. But yeah, I wish he had more to do. And I gotta admit, like, even though Wesley Snipes was doing a mostly straight performance, like, I thought he had a lot of intensity.
Sure.
Like with his stares, man, that dude has a mean stare. Like he looked like he was burning holes through Lawrence Fishburne in that one scene. So yeah, I a lot of props to an early Wesley Snipes performance.
And Steve Buscemi has always looked the same.
Yeah,
seriously.
He doesn't change.
What's really awesome, I think, is the setting in New York City. Like, this is just before the gentrification of New York City. And it's still, you could have placed this back in 1975, it would have still been the same. Because of the look and the grime of the city and all the burnt out cars and the newspapers and trash on the ground. And everything about New York City screams unsafe. Whereas there's a lot of people who go nowadays as it's a tourist destination for families, and it looks completely different now. So it's really interesting. I love the setting.
He captures it well. I mean, all three films that I've seen from him, he definitely captures that aspect in New York. I mean, Miss 45 definitely, Bad Lieutenant 100%. It's very similar to this film. And in this film as well, like, I mean, the first 10 minutes of the film is basically like a tour through New York, is like Christopher Walken is getting reinserted back into his old stomping grounds and stuff, and he's just kind of like viewing through the limo window, and it's a stark contrast. Like, he stays in this this I guess like high-end hotel, and where he operates though is like in the slums essentially, with all these other criminals.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when I I kept wondering, like, what are they doing in this club that's in the that's in the middle of this trash area? It's man.
Oh man, I that's the one thing I wanted to mention. I mean, again, viewing it through today's lens, the film did feel real male gazy. Like,
oh yeah,
tons of shots just lingering on like women just dancing with no bra on for whatever reason,
right?
Assuming they're on drugs. There's a shot, like a really extended shot of like a guy walking with his hand on a woman's ass. I swear it felt like it lasted like 2 minutes. And I was just like, why are we doing this?
When he gets back from prison to his apartment and one of his companions there on the bed loading the gun, the camera lingers on her a lot, and he just stares as he walks by through the doorway.
I thought it let it go a bit towards the end of the film, but in the beginning, it just felt like, wow, man, what are we doing here? Like, what's the point of all this?
She shows up again later doing coke incorrectly off the other, I guess, cop. I guess that's him. Like when he she's behind like the dangly curtains there, and like Christopher Walken walks by and she's like licking coke off him. Like, you're supposed to snort that. She's just like la 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 la. I'm like, have you even seen drugs?
And would you even want to do any licking in that club area? Oh God.
No,
God,
but I'll tell you this movie's budget spared no expense for fake bullets.
Squibs up the wazoo.
Yeah, the squib budget for this, just the blanks themselves must have run them a pretty penny, because the shootouts are like epically long and sometimes ridiculously so.
Like, how long are they on that bridge? It's like Fast and the Furious runway long.
Exactly.
Basically. and comedic in that no one hits a single person in that entire time. Yeah. Like, Lawrence Fishburne is literally sticking out of the moonroof of the limo, and like Wesley Snipes is like, what, 15 feet away from him, like basically bumper to bumper, and you can't hit him. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, hundreds of bullets were fired and not a single person was hit. I'm like, this is like A-team level, like, misfire.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, also looking at it through this lens now, I'm like, you are leaving so much fucking forensic evidence. Like, Gary Sinise and his team are gonna come find you. They're gonna play won't get fooled again. Because like none of these like villains ever cover their tracks. They just shoot randomly and wantonly, and they're like, it's fine.
Yeah, if that's probably my biggest complaint is the length of that car chase. Obviously, if anything's going to strain credibility in this film or credulity, it's probably that. I found myself just wondering, why is this going on for so long? I like how it ends. We'll get to that in spoilers, I think, but I like how it ends. And overall, I like how the movie ends. Anything else you guys want to mention before we get into spoilers?
No, I think we're ready. I'm good with spoilers.
So, like I said, I think that final shootout underneath the bridge and in this trashed out area or whatever is pretty cool, and I it's almost like a Western. I think that's how it plays out, and the way Lawrence Fishburne goes. I mean, I like how that he's laughing as he, before he gets shot in the head, and I like that David Caruso shoots him in the head. It's just adds to the brutality of the film, I think. And then,
well, I mean, David Caruso's talking about stuff like that for most of the movie, like, until you finally see him do it.
No, I get it. That the previous scene before they raid the club is him screaming to his peers that he wants to, do anything at all costs to bring them down. At the funeral, Christopher Walken just blows off his head with a shotgun.
That was my favorite scene in the whole movie because I didn't see that coming a mile away.
Yeah,
never saw that coming.
I thought it was gonna be like a taunt or something to have a car chase.
That's what I thought. Like, he's gonna show up at the funeral and like Caruso's gonna be like, "You got a lot of nerve coming here, Frank." You know what I mean? They'd have some sort of like thing, but like, nope. I'm like, holy shit! Just roll on the one, just fucking blows him away. I'm like, damn. And I'm like, these are really the worst criminals ever because they see you getting away. Your limo is not a fast machine. It's also pretty noticeable.
Yeah, that scene works really well because not in a million years, in most films, they would never go that route because not in a million years, I think, would anyone be dumb enough to show up to a cop funeral where there are hundreds of cops and be like, yeah, this is my moment to like off this guy. I'm going to do it right here, right now. because it just seems it kind of strains credibility. Like
Well,
that Frank would be that stupid, you know,
is
to
it,
do
is
it
it
right
stupid,
there, right
or is
then.
it just ego and also psychosis?
I guess I don't know. But if there was one thing that I had a lot of regret that this film didn't explore more or better, I guess, is the idea, like the duality in like all the characters in this film. Like you have the Christopher Walken character and Lawrence Fishburne that are in their eyes doing good things to achieve potential good things, and then you have the cops that are supposed to be the good guys that are talking, or David Cruz specifically and Wesley Snipes are doing bad things to supposedly, you know, have a good conclusion in, like, you know, setting up a hit on Frank, which is something he would do, and then Frank is essentially doing the cop's job for them.
See, I think that that's one thing I appreciate about this movie is that, while I normally do love movies that explore those dualities, I think the thing about this movie that I like is that there are bad people and then there are really bad people. There's no other side. It's just all bad. And I think I appreciate that it kind of sticks to its guns that way.
Like, you need to explain what you meant with the moral compass guy, the older detective. Like, he loses his way. Like, I didn't feel like he lost his way. He didn't fire until he was fired upon.
Well, I agree, but he wasn't going on any kind of legal pretense like he wanted to. He was still going after him, and I think he was expecting a shootout. So he was still going against his own moral compass, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree, because I mean, he shows up and he basically still is a cop in that moment. He's not like, I'm just gonna off him right here, you know, like, or he could have easily taken out Frank. Frank didn't even notice him immediately. You know what I mean? Like, he had the upper hand. He didn't take advantage of it. I feel like he was still trying to be a cop in that moment and try to talk it out in the hostage situation. And Frank took advantage, like you knew he would.
And I don't think that he was always, you know, great or good compared to his cop peers, because I always got the feeling that he was willing to overlook all of the dirty stuff his partners or his peers did as well, and probably dipped his toes into those things as well. I mean, he like you said, he put that corpse in the trunk. He was part of that, so.
Yeah, and I also wonder what there's at least 2 scenes in this film where they show him working on a computer, and I had no idea what that was supposed to represent.
He's looking up all of Frank's associates.
Oh, okay.
Like, so that's how he knows, like, who his, like, counsel is, and the blonde woman and, like, her role in all this, and, like, the black chick that works with him too. He's, like, looking at all of, like, Frank's known associates.
Yeah, as far as that blonde woman, the lawyer, I'll admit that was probably a little bit too underplayed in terms of, it seemed like she was on the straight and narrowed at the beginning when she's in the restaurant talking with the senator or the police chief or whatever, and having dinner with them when Frank shows up, and then goes back to, or is drawn to, Frank's bad side. So yeah, that whole thing probably was the most, you know, the weakest part for me. Yeah, and then in terms of that cop, the good cop, you know, getting shot in the train, and then Frank bites it at the end in the cab. It just goes to show how unforgiving this movie is, and that nobody escapes, even the quote unquote good guy of that cop right there.
No, I don't know. I'm gonna stick to my guns and say that I think he was at least trying. I mean, he did go like the proper routes. He did go see the lawyer and drop off those photos and try to move that lawyer to, you know, to flip on Frank or something. And I don't think he was involved with what David Caruso and Wesley Snipes were pulling off at the end there. I think he was just kind of like a sort of casualty in being around them and in that. Like, I think, I don't know, he didn't strike me as being represented as like he was like, you know, in with David Caruso and what Wesley Snipes were up to.
Anything last to mention before we get into grades?
I mean, visually, this whole movie has a very TV look for it. Like,
I just
it's got that CBS special.
Wow.
on a Saturday night CBS crime drama.
I don't know,
from 8
Wally.
to 10.
I think your TV settings must have been off because this movie looked great to me.
I'm going to say I half agree with Wally because there were times where I'm like, wow, this is a really mixed bag. Because at times I really felt like the cinematography was great. And I'd even, at times, especially in the beginning, it felt like a bit like a Malick film. And then there were times where I'm like, wow, this is a really standard setup. It felt like, like what Wally's saying, more like televisual or something.
All right, Wally, grade.
I give it a C-.
Wow, C-.
I did not really care for this movie at all. I watched it twice because of the shit lighting in this to make sure I was seeing who was talking to who and what was going on. But that did not help. But I will say this: it does watch much faster on a second watch than it did on the first watch.
Isn't it the case with most films?
Sometimes, but this it felt like it was like just blowing through. The pacing felt so much different on the second watch versus the first. And I was like, wow, we're almost at the end of the movie at this point. Shit.
I'll give it a B+. I liked it that much. I really had a good time with this movie, despite the sleaziness of it. And like I said, I'm anxious to catch up with more Abel Ferrara films. I even want to rewatch Miss 45. Oh my god, that movie. So B+ for me. Hermano.
I'm gonna go C+. If I was them next time, I'd build a time machine and not come out the same year as Goodfellas. And also, why was Lawrence Fishburne ordering so much food at that chicken place?
He was hungry.
Why not?
Yeah, like it was just him and his friend, and they ordered enough food for like 20 people.
I think he's buying for the rest of his gang because he's got a very large posse that follows him around.
I don't know. You just see him with that one guy.
I think he's buying it for them.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you order that much food? Looked like a lot of good food, probably homemade, good stuff. And
I want to find that restaurant in New York myself, actually, next time I go.
Good luck if it still exists. All right, that does for this episode of the First Time Watchers podcast. Donate via patreon.com/firsttimewatchers or buy stuff at zazzle.com/firsttimewatchers.
Talk to us on Twitter at 1STTimeWatchers on Twitter.
Or write to us at our email, firsttimewatchers@gmail.com.
Download our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Please leave a review because we want the feedback. If you have any suggestions of movies for us to watch, please send a tweet or an email. Speaking of suggestions, let's recommend a movie. Wally.
All right, so in this movie, Christopher Walken playing Frank White. Frank White just had a dream of making the city better. He had a dream, Tim. He had a dream of grandeur. And in this movie, someone else has a dream of owning his own lawn service until the bad guys show up. And I'm talking about 2011's Rutger Hauer vehicle, Hobo with a Shotgun. A homeless vigilante blows away crooked cops, pedophile centers, and other scumbags with his trusty pump-action shotgun. This man has a dream. He had a dream. He had the money saved to get that lawnmower to start his business, get himself off the streets. But you know what? The life just pulled him in, and he just had to take justice into his own hands.
I'll recommend a movie that I rewatched as part of my best of decade catch-up, and that is 2017's Columbus, directed by Kogonada, starring John Cho and Haley Lou Richardson. A Korean-born man finds himself stuck in Columbus, Indiana, where his architect father is in a coma. The man meets a young woman who wants to stay in Columbus with her mother, a recovering addict, instead of pursuing her own dreams. This is something that went under the radar. It didn't get much of a release at all. Even its initial home video release was on DVD. Didn't even have a Blu-ray release until more recently. And I will say that it is one of the best films of the decade. It's probably one of the best looking films I have ever seen. The way the director and the cinematographer are able to capture buildings and interiors and make use of shapes and negative space is breathtaking. It reminded me almost like a Jacques Tati film. The way it looks, I mean. I honestly, I think the photography is my version of like a visual ASMR. I feel borderline aroused at most of the shots. Like the framing and photography of this film is my sexual identity. That's how I feel about the look of this film. And not only does it work on a technical level, but it all works in conjunction with the character arcs. And I like how there's this unlikely friendship that forms a bond between these two people, and it really works by the end of this movie. It kind of sneaks up on you because of its minimalism, and it shows you everything you need to know about these two people. Their chemistry is amazing, and they work well with the writing and the directing. It's an amazing film, in my opinion. So Columbus 2017. Hermano.
All right. I'll mention another crime film. One of my, I've only seen it a couple times, but been meaning to rewatch it. Out of Brazil from 2002, City of God.
Oh man,
you guys seen City of God?
I saw that a while ago, and that's brutal.
Yeah, Tim, Wally, I would recommend it. I think you'd like it. So I'll give the synopsis here. In the slums of Rio, two kids' paths diverge as one struggles to become a photographer and the other a kingpin. Tim, do you remember Little Dice?
Vaguely.
Remember the kids in this? I think the main kid, when he's young, I think he goes by Little Dice. Remember performance?
Yeah.
If I'm remembering the right guy. Early performance from Alice Braga. Do you remember her?
Oh yeah.
She's the girl, the other one, the trio of friends.
Isn't Alice Braga the one at the end of the one with Will Smith? I Am Legend.
Spoiler, Tim.
Nice.
Put a spoiler tag on that.
Nice.
But yeah, solid crime film, kind of showing how, you meet people in life. You takes one moment to your path to diverge, and you go in different directions, and it's just life is tough, man. There's way more to it than that, but the film's solid. Amazing cinematography, great great score as well. I think this film, as crime films go, I feel like it's an under the radar one that I don't, often hear, with the holy trinity of crime films of like Godfather and Goodfellas and, things like that. So would recommend it if people haven't seen it. City of God from 2002.
All right, and stay tuned for our next episode. We're continuing our 2019 Christopher Reeve Superman series by discussing the 1983 film Superman 3.
Yeah, that's the First Time Watchers podcast because we like to watch.
These streets will make you feel brand new. Lights will inspire you.
Come on.
Let's hear it.
You welcome, OG. I made you hot, nigga. Catch me at the X with OG at a Yankee game. Shit, I made the Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee can. You should know I bleed blue, but I ain't a crypto. But I got a gang of niggas walking with my click though. Welcome to the melting pot. Corners where we selling rock. Africa been by the shit. Home of the hip hop. Yellow cap, gypsy cap, dollar cap, holla back. For foreigners, it ain't fair. They act like they forgot how to act. 8 million stories out there in the naked city. It's a pity half of y'all won't make it. Me, I got a plug special where I got it made. If Jesus paying LeBron, I'm paying Dwayne Wade. 3 dice CeeLo, 3 card Marley.
I blame it on Borderlands 3.
Oh, I got a new game.
Yeah, I've been playing that every free moment I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Oh, there's in one of the missions, there's a Tommy Wiseau mission you take on. It's clear reference to Tommy Wiseau. You take a mission from this guy. I meant to look it up to see if it was actually him, because whoever's doing the voice sounds incredibly like him and is doing all the vocal mannerisms and stuff perfect. And I'm like, I should have looked it up. I meant to, but I forgot. And the whole mission is like a guy whose film got stolen by some bandits. And they got stolen because they didn't want to watch it. The guy was basically forcing it on them. And they went to great lengths to guard it and hide it so that he wouldn't get it back or whatever and force it on them. And your mission is to get it back. And then, spoiler, eventually you do. And you actually put it in a player and play it. And it's like Tommy Wiseau via, if Tommy Wiseau did surrealism.
What is Borderlands anyways? What is the series?
It's basically a post-apocalyptic sci-fi.
Okay.
Takes place on a different planet. You play these guys called Vault Hunters, and basically you're looking for this artifact that opens up a portal that unleashes a monster, but also unleashes a gateway to supposed big treasure. So you got to fight the monster essentially before you can claim the treasure, and It's kind of like it's very heavily inspired by like Mad Max and like sci-fi films and action films.
And what makes it so great? The playability and the story.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a really like comedic, fun tone to it.
Okay.
It's not like serious at all, and really goofy. Like, you know, they do a lot of pop culture reference types, like comedy, like the Tommy Wiseau thing. There's a Chunk and Sloth reference from Goonies. What else? There's a lot. There's way too many to list, but I think in one of the other games too, there was like a Back to the Future, like Doc and Marty reference.
Interesting.
Where you do missions and it's like characters that are clearly inspired. Like in the Chunk and Sloth case, you do a mission where you have to go fight them, and the guys' names are Thunk Thunk and like, I don't know, I forget the other guy's name, but it's basically a big heavy guy that's carrying the other guy like a backpack.
Okay,
like,
then.
Kind of like in Mad Max, what is it, Thunderdome? That there's like the Master Blaster and the other one or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
That's funny.
So yeah, it mixes and matches like a lot of pop culture reference type stuff like that.
The In Session Film Podcast. Way to whip it, Polly.